Hi, this film is a suggestion for how to look at the gender perspective when working with texts. And before looking at the text, I would go through with my students what a stereotype is. Now, stereotypes are fixed images of what we think represents a certain type of person or thing, of course. We've got the verb to stereotype. And if someone is stereotyped as something, people believe that this person will behave in a certain way, only because he or she is a certain type of person. And the adjective stereotypical. Well, a stereotypical Swede is, for example, often described as a person who's reserved or very shy. The stereotypical Swede doesn't really speak to other people. Now, this stereotype might apply to one or two people, even quite a few. But it's not an absolute truth. Now, I turn to the text. In this case, the text is My First Date from Focus on English 8. In this text, you'll find a couple of stereotypes that are easily recognizable. The first one is Jane, the girly girl, really silly in a way, starts to cry very easily, dresses to impress, does everything to impress the guy. And the guy is James, the most popular boy in school, who is, well, he's strong, he's confident, he's laid back, easygoing. So they're complete contrasts. My first question would be, what stereotypes can you find in this text? And once we've pinned them down, which will be a quick matter, I would ask the students, what impression do these stereotypical descriptions give you? Are they positive impressions? Are they negative impressions? And why is that? My guess is that they will not like the description of Jane. They might not like the description of James. They might disagree. No, we're not all like that. There are good guys out there. But they'll probably not think as bad of him as they would of Jane. Can you recognize yourselves in any of these stereotypes would be another question. And my guess is that yes, to a point they probably will be able to recognize themselves. And then a follow-up could of course be, oh, which parts and what do you think of this and why do you think we act like that? Because the way they act in this text is something that society has fought against for quite some time now. Now, once we've established all this, I would start to have a closer look at the text. Are there any signs in this text that Jane might not be all that soft? And of course there are. The first scene is when James promises her mother that he'll get her home in time. Had it been anyone else, the feminist in me would have punished him there and then. She tells us there's a feminist inside, which means that she can't agree with the way she behaves. Now, on the next page, the next scene is when they talk about the film. It was a stupid romantic comedy. We only went because the other choice was a macho action movie, which I absolutely hate. She has opinions. And apparently she has let James know these opinions because they end up seeing the other film. The third scene is in the restaurant where James has gobbled down a couple of burgers and Jane, of course, is the vegetarian. Maybe he thought I was a bit of a freak because I didn't enjoy eating dead animals like he did. Now, she is opinionated. You would not describe it like this if you didn't know exactly what you thought. When it comes to James, now we don't really know that much about him. He just seems to be that cool, laid-back, confident kind of guy. When we turn to the workbook pages and listen to James's side of the story, however, we will listen to a completely different story because James is not at all the guy. He's not at all the macho one. And it's interesting to see why we get that impression then from the text. Why isn't there any part of James shining through? The after reading question has a very interesting one in the number 5. In what ways is this story very much like an American high school soap opera on TV? Now, such TV series are full of stereotypes. And when there is especially a girl character who displays more male-like characteristics, she's usually described as being cool, being rebellious, sometimes a bit difficult. Why is that then? And how come these soap operas are so full of stereotypes that most of us probably do not agree with? Today we've got all the reality shows as well, and they're even more interesting to look at because here we've got real people, and still we see the stereotypes. And what does that do? How does that affect teenagers growing up when everything on TV that surrounds them show something that's not really what we should aim at becoming, perhaps? Now, after working with this text, I would definitely have a look at Priscilla and the Whips, which is a text a few pages down the road. This text portrays a girl who really displays male-like characteristics, exaggerated such characteristics. She is described as being cool. She's almost a bit frightening. And that is also an interesting follow-up question. How do we react when we come across somebody who behaves in a way that we did not expect? Is it perhaps sometimes difficult to know how to react? These questions are really important to discuss with the students. And I also think it's really important when looking at the gender perspective, not just to count how many photos with girls there are as opposed to photos with boys, how many texts are about girls as opposed to boys, because it also is very important to look at what kind of girls are portrayed or boys are portrayed. And along with the follow-up exercises and the complete work plan, well, what do we end up with? What is the result? I think that will give quite a few insights, and I'm sure most teachers do this as well, but still think it's really, really important to point it out. Well, thank you.